Here's a look at a recap of your markets on this Tuesday, the 28th day of October. We're just going to start off today talking about what went on at some of the auction barns around the state and most of the trends, regardless of what auction you were at, because it really didn't matter. All the auctions kind of seeing the same things right now. Today's barns happen to catch up with where the market has dropped, so we're seeing the same kind of lower trends today. Lawley Brothers Livestock Market, they had a few loads of those reputation heifers that they sell every couple of weeks. 81 head of 618-pound heifers, tagged as replacements at $385.50. They had two loads of heifers right at 720 pounds that brought $350. 41 head of 823-pound heifers at Lawley, $328. Those were tagged as replacements as well. Those 6 and 7 weight heifers compared back to the same consignments from the same ranch on 2 weeks ago's auction. Those are $25 to $30 lower. Kingsville Livestock Auction, that barn's still going on. They still have quite a ways to go before the day finishes there. But they sold a few loads of steers midday there. A load of 701-pound steers, just barely breaking into that 700-pound mark at $360. 21 head of 800-pound steers, 800-pound smooth at $355. Given where we are, both of those tickets are awful good prices for what's happened this week. They had another 91 head of 843-pound steers at $347.50. Four state stockyards in Exeter, a package of 539-pound steers there sold at $420 earlier in the day. Ozarks Regional Stockyards in West Plains, they did end up with more than they expected to see today, or maybe even perhaps hope, depending on which side of the market you were on. 1,334 head through the barn, another 659 heads sold over the video auction. The yearlings this week, $20 to $30 lower. The calves, $40 to $60 lower. The largest draft of the day there at Ozarks Regional Stockyards was 93 head of 727-pound steers that brought $340. Box beef cutout values were mixed today. Choice closed up $1.77 at $379.66. Select down $1.66 at $360 even. Volume today, 123 loads of cuts, trimmings, and grinds. The Choice Select spread at $19.65. Added a few more numbers to the negotiated feedlot trade for the week, all basically in the north. Texas still at 0, Kansas 146 head so far. Iowa's turned in 8,717 head. Nebraska 18,004 head. The live sales $5 to $10 lower than last week in the north at $228 to mostly $230. Dress sales $10 to $12 lower from $355 to $360. Taking a look at the livestock futures today on the live cattle side, things kind of tried to catch a breath for at least today anyways. Of course, we were operating on those expanded limits for the day, but we didn't get nowhere close to any of those, luckily, on the live cattle side. So we'll go back to the normal daily limits tomorrow, which will be $7.25. The October live cattle contract at $227.50, that was down $1.32, and of course that contract's just got a couple more days of trading, so it kind of has to get in line with where it needs to be now. The further out contracts there, that really didn't do a whole lot today considering what we've been seeing. December 60 cents lower, $226.57. February was up a dime at $224.10. And as you go on out there, the rest of the contracts just mixed a little bit on either side of higher or lower. Feeder cattle, the October contract was down $1.40 today at $344.10. And that contract as well, it's got to get in line by the time business closes on Thursday. The current CME cash feeder cattle index, of course, running a day behind, and it's going to keep dropping until we get all of last week's sales out of that and get this week's sales that are substantially lower figured into it. Currently, today, it did go down $7.30 at $360.25, but still a long ways from where it needs to meet up with that October, that again setting at $344.10. November feeders were down $5.05, $333.40. January down $9.55 at $324.87. When you get into some of those next summer next spring and summer months, most of those contracts were down $11 to $12. And of course, in the back of everyone's mind, trying to figure out what's going to happen with the meeting later this week and what will be said or perhaps won't be said about the Mexican border. But right now, that's still weighing awful heavily on everyone's minds and pushing the market lower with the thoughts that it could perhaps be opened back up. Of course, if we find out that they're going to keep it closed for a while, we could potentially see these contracts put on just as much green as they've lost the last couple of days in red. Lean hogs today, December 80.82 down 67, February 82.45 down 95, and April 86.87 down $1.12. Turning our attention to the grain markets, at least we've got something positive to talk about over the last couple of days, and grains continue to push a bit higher, led by the soybeans, all on hopes of getting some foreign deals made and selling some of those beans from that huge crop that we're currently harvesting or just got in the bin. Corn today at the elevators, 2 to 4 cents higher. Soybeans, 11 to 14 higher. Wheat up 3. At the elevators in St. Louis, corn, $4.50 to $4.52. Kansas City at $4.22. Beans in St. Louis, $10.99 to $11 even. Kansas City at $10.28 to $10.43. Wheat bids in St. Louis, $5.04 to $5.17. Kansas City at $5.04. On the Board of Trade, December corn up 3 1/4, $4.32. March up 1 3/4 at $4.46. May up 1 1/4 at $4.55. November beans up 11 at $10.78 1/4. January up 10 1/4 at $10.95 1/4. March beans up 11 1/4 at $11.06 3/4. Wheat contracts, December up 3, closing the day at $5.29. March up 3 3/4, $5.45 3/4. May at $5.57 1/2, up 4 1/2. Soybean meal for December, $306.50 a ton, up $8.30. Soybean oil for December down 51 cents a hundredweight at $50.26. With the Missouri Department of Agriculture, that's a recap of your markets for Tuesday. This is Tony Hancock.